This is a quick demonstration of how to get your live distribution to work again. What you're seeing here is the boot screen from QEMU. Once again, I am running a virtual machine to demonstrate what you should do with your own desktop machine. So your boot screen would not be the same as this. I'm just stopping here so I can get started with the screen recording. So we'll go ahead and start. You will see that the boot screen looks different, and this is normal. What we want to do first is not to use any persistence. And also we don't want to use the failsafe one. So move the cursor, move the highlighted item up by moving your cursor key to select this one. Press the tab key, and when you see this, use the arrow key, the left arrow key, until you get to persistence, and then just use the backspace at that point to remove persistence, and then just press the enter key to start up the system. What this does is it will ignore your live-rw partition if you have one set up already. Most of you probably have that already set up, and it's just that it's not working correctly. So in this case, I'll show you exactly how to fix it. I also double checked this, and this ISO does work with the NVIDIA chipset, and that's good news for those of you who have an NVIDIA chipset in your system. And I'm just going to double check that my recorder is recording from the right channel. And it is. Excellent. For some reason, it starts up the X server twice. That's a problem that I still haven't fixed yet, but I think at this point I'm happy that it just runs. Okay, we'll go ahead and use the default setup, and you should do the same because this is without any persistence. Start up a command prompt, and then once you start it up, change to super user. Remember the password is BALL, B-A-L-L. And at this point, what you want to do is to create a mount point for your USB thumb drive that contains the persistent drive. Now, if you do not know what it is, one thing you can do is to unplug and then plug it back in again. At this point, when you use the MESG, we are not going to see it here because I'm not using a USB thumb drive. But if you do use a USB thumb drive, the last few entries right about here will show you the partitions available on that particular thumb drive. In my case, it's SDB1. So I'll go ahead and mount it, or create a mount point first. The mount point is /media/SDB1. You can choose other names at a different mount point, but as a convention, all the mount points should be in /media. And once the mount point is created, I can mount the device, which is SDB1. That's the first partition of my second hard drive. Yours is probably going to be different. I'm guessing it's going to be at least SDC something, because you will have an internal hard drive taking up SDA, and then your CD-ROM drive most likely will take up the letter B, so your next hard drive will be C, and so on. But I could be wrong, and you just have to be careful when you do that. And let's see. Okay, that's not what I want to do. Okay, I have to do one other thing first. To run the command E to label, because we have to change the label of that particular device. So we're gonna. Okay, this step we can do it in several ways. You can use gparted as a GUI tool. So when you load up a GUI tool, it's a little bit safer this way because you can actually use the drop-down tool to find the drive first. And then once you find the drive, you can actually double check and make sure that the label is currently set to live-rw. And in this case, I'm going to change it. I'm just going to change the label from live-rw to persistence. So you have to remember to spell this right, otherwise the system won't recognize it. It's persistence, which is persistence, and we'll go ahead and change it. Click the check mark to apply the operation, and that's it. Okay, we are not changing the content, we are not reformatting anything, and then we can close gpod-add. Once we close gpod-add, we'll go ahead and actually mount the drive, which in this case is /dev/sdb1 to media sdb1. You can also use gpod-add to determine where your thumb drive is located, and so that's why you can actually run gpod-add before the mkdir, so that you can name the subfolder under /media correctly. And now that I have it mounted, I will change my directory to sdb1. And you can see that it only has lost and found. What we need is a file called live-persistence.conf. So we'll go ahead and create that file at this point. It has to be at the root of the partition that you will use for persistence. So we'll use an editor. In this case, I use VI. You can use Nano, which is a little bit easier to use. -persistence.conf. So it's live-persistence.conf. Press the enter key. It's just a text file, and all I have to do is to say /home, and then we'll exit, and that's it. That's all we need to do to create a persistent drive for /home, and there's not much else we have to do. So I'll use cd to change my directory out of the mounted directory, and then say umount /dev sdb1 to unmount the persistent drive to basically get ready to reboot again. So now we're going to reboot. If you have not created a persistent partition yet, you can watch the other video to see how you can create a persistent drive or persistent partition in this case. Alright, so we're going to reboot again, and this time I will use x86, but without changing any options. In other words, I am keeping persistence in this case. So I press the enter key. They changed the way persistent works from version 2 to version 3 of the live scripts. So the new one is considerably different from the old way, and documentation is also very lacking at this point. And that's why I have to read the source code to try to piece together how to get it to work. There is some help online to use, but even those is not very consistent. Oh, okay, it doesn't look like it's gonna work. We'll see. We'll see whether it works this time or not. If it doesn't work, I know exactly what I need to do to fix it. So we'll go ahead and let it try to load the persistent drive. And it's restarting X server. For some reason, it's just restarting X server or over. And the only way to tell whether it is persistent or not is to start with a command prompt and then just type mount and press the enter key. It is actually mounted at this point. You can see it is mounting /device sdb1 on /home. So it is actually working correctly at this point. And we can double check by creating a test file. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just say touch. Touch automatically creates a file if it doesn't exist yet, and make the timestamp the current time. So we'll just say touch test.txt, which creates an empty file, and we'll do a ls-l test.txt to confirm that this file is now created, and then we can just go ahead and reboot and see whether it works. So we'll go ahead and reboot. And what you're seeing here in the background here, since we're waiting for the system to properly shut down, that's actually created using the GIMP. There are scripts in the GIMP that you can use to create all sorts of interesting background. Oh, and we are now here back to the restart screen, and we'll press the Enter key with the third option on the boot menu. So for those of you who don't know what the GIMP is, it stands for the GNU Image Manipulation Program, which is a really strange name for a Photoshop-like product. It works really good. It has all sorts of plugins. You can even use raw files from certain digital cameras, and I find it to be quite sufficient. I have not needed to use anything more sophisticated than the GIMP. Like Photoshop. The GIMP is also available for Windows, interestingly, and it's very lightweight. It takes up only, I think at the most, 10 megabytes, or at the most maybe 20 megabytes. It's basically next to nothing compared to Photoshop, and yet it has maybe about 90-95% of the functionality. So it's a really good, useful open source program if you want to handle pictures. We already know that the persistence is working because it didn't ask me whether to use the default desktop setup or not. So that's really, really helpful. I'm just going to do one more thing that you probably do not want to do, and there's no need to do it either, but I just want to see where my file is actually saved. So let me change to root user first. Just like before, I create my mount point, which is SDB1 in /media, and I'll go ahead and mount device SDB1 to media SDB1. Now this is really dangerous because I now have two different mount points corresponding to the same partition. But since I'm not going to make any changes here, that's why it's actually quote-unquote okay. But this can be dangerous if you are making any changes. So you can see here, home was not here before. This is actually a folder. It wasn't here before it was created automatically. So if I look into home, I will see user, and if I look into user, I see all these files, including test.txt, which is the file that I just created. So this proves that persistence is now working as long as you have this file. Okay, the most important part is the file called live persistence, and in that file you just need one single entry, which is /home, and that's it. One single line /home, and you'll save it into the root of the persistence partition, and that's the magic that makes it work. If you make it any more complicated, like the man pages suggest, it actually does not work. So just keep it simple. The only thing we want persistence is /home. This means if you make any type of system configuration, it will be forgotten. You can't really set up your printers and stuff like that because those belong to /etc/etc. And I think there are some entries that will belong to /var. You can experiment to see if that stuff also works, but I am happy that it is working the way it is right now with just /home, which should be sufficient for doing your homework assignment. And this pretty much concludes, just to be safe, I'm going to unmount the other mount point, which is /media /sdb1. And now the system is perfectly safe. Get out from the root user account, and now I can actually start to do the homework assignments. So I'm going to try to figure out how to get /etc to work also, because that can be helpful. But at this point, the live ISO is functional. It has persistence. It will work with NVIDIA chipset video cards as long as you use the 686 kernel. So as far as I'm concerned, it is now quote unquote good enough for the class. There are always things that I can kind of improve to make it work better. But at this point, I'll just release it, and so that you guys can start to experiment with the Debian desktop and also the virtual machines. I'm going to upload this to YouTube right away so that you guys will have access to it. Thanks for watching.